And joining us now to talk about the rally in gold is Dennis Gartman, editor of the Gartman Letter, a daily commentary on global capital markets. He's been following the financial markets for more than 35 years, though he doesn't look a day over 35.
Dennis, you should see my wife. She doesn't look a day over 25.
Is she?
She is.
Let's talk about gold here. I mean, the rally just keeps on going, and well, why is that? Because to me, it seems like the fear factor that Michael Cugino was talking about has kind of settled down here.
It's not a fear factor that's driving gold at all. It's really not. It's just a matter of reserve currency changes that are going on. If you were the reserve currency manager at the People's Bank of China, if you're at the Reserve Bank of Indonesia, and you had a surfeit of euros, and you look at what's going on over in Europe, and you're seeing the European economic community being torn apart, the cloth of Europe is being torn apart, what's your propensity to step up and buy more euros for your reserves? Probably somewhat limited. In fact, what's your propensity to sell some of your euros? Where else do you go? You probably have a surfeit of dollars. You have no choice. You're going to gold. It is not a fear-driven factor. It is a reserve-driven factor, and that's why people don't understand what's happening here.
So what's a more realistic price in your view? 1255 is what we're closing at here today.
Let me think. Higher. People won't like my answer, Carol, but the answer is the same one I'm going to give you for the last 2 years. It's going to go up. It will continue to go up until it stops going up. I've been at this business 35 years. That's the best answer one can give you. Have I any idea where it will stop? No, I do not. All I know is that the movement is from the lower left to the upper right on the charts, and it's going to continue.
Right.
So, you know, a couple weeks ago, though, you did say that you were starting to trim back your positions in gold. And why was that, and what changed your mind?
We got up to 1250 that one day. It stopped. It didn't advance any farther. I thought, okay, it's in the news enough. Time to go and move to the sidelines for a little bit. Now, let's remember, I'm long gold primarily in non-U.S. dollar terms. I own gold in euro terms. I own it in sterling terms. I even own it in yen terms. I really don't own much gold in dollar terms, but everybody thinks in dollar terms, so at 1250 stuck in everyone's mind. I thought at that point, probably not a bad idea as a trader, step to the sidelines. It went down, it got to about 1210. I actually thought it would go a little lower. It didn't. It stopped going down. Good traders say it's not going down anymore. The trend is still upward. I don't have any choice but to come back and own it back again, and so I do.
Dennis, what do you think about the backdrop in Europe and the uncertainties there?
I think I have nothing but ill to say about what's going to go on in Europe, to be honest. Okay, I think that the euro is a doomed currency. I think that Mr. and Mrs. Schmidt in Bremen, Germany, have said, you know what? I don't get to retire till I'm 67. You know what? I have to work 5 days a year more than the Greeks do. You know what? I have to work 7 hours a week more than the Greeks do. You know what? I get one week less vacation each year than the Greeks do, and they're asking me to support their country. I've had enough. I brought in my own country 20 years ago. I joined my cousins in East Germany.
And it wasn't necessarily a pleasant experience.
It was not a pleasant experience at all. It was an unbelievably expensive experience. They understand this, and they're saying, I've had enough. At the basis of the economy, Mr. and Mrs. Schmidt, who go to work every day, run their own business, go to the factory, work hard, are saying, I don't think I want to do that. That's why Miss Merkel finds herself in difficulty politically. Right. The Germans are simply saying, I've had enough.
You know, I think you're definitely right, and I spent a lot of time, obviously, in Germany with German people, but they have already gone over the major hurdle, right? I mean, they've already provided the first round of help here.
They're coming back a second and a third and a fourth time.
Do you think they need more?
Of course they will. Anybody who doesn't think that they're coming back, my old rule in the business is there's never one cockroach, i.e., when you have a problem, there's always going to be another problem. There's always going to be another problem. There will be another problem. So we know that Greece is coming back. Spain's going to come. Portugal's going to come.
What about cockroaches here in the United States?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of problems that we have here, but we have fewer problems, really, than does Europe. You have tried to put together a philosophical circumstance that for 400 years, you had country after country waging war one against the other. You have greater religious problems. You have greater philosophical problems. You have geographical problems. As I like to say, the difference between Virginia and California is much smaller than the difference between Brussels and the boot heel of Italy. Those philosophical problems are chasms in size.
But then you don't worry significantly then about the kind of growing, the growing deficit here in the United States.
I worry about everything all the time, Carol.
But do you think it's going to be significantly problematic?
I think that we have a regime in power in Washington right now who wants to make our deficit demonstrably larger than it is. I worry about that. But I don't worry about it as much as I worry about the problems that are going on in Europe.
It's all relative.
Yeah, well, everybody has problems. It's a matter of whose problems are relatively larger than who else's problems.
But if those problems that you are worried about over in Europe, Dennis, I mean, how much of an impact do you think that they could ultimately have on the United States?
How much do we export to Europe? A very little bit. I'm much more worried. If I'm going to be worried about who we export, I worry more about what goes on in Canada as far as the United States economy is concerned than I worry about Germany. If you look at how much we export across the border, import back and forth to Canada, it dwarfs what we do with Europe. It dwarfs what we do with Europe. So we should be more concerned about what's going on in Ottawa than we should be worried about what's going on in Berlin.
Let me ask you, bottom line, we only have 20 seconds left. The euro, you think, is doomed. How much further do we see it go down, or do you think it's really completely doomed?
I think it's completely doomed. I think it goes to parity. I think it goes to 70 cents. I think it goes to 50 cents. I finally think that the Germans, it will either be that the Germans say we've had enough and we withdraw, and then I'm going to be very bullish of the German economy, or they tell the Greeks you're out. One of the two. I don't know how it ends, but I think it ends up north versus south. North being fiscally responsible, better productivity numbers, the south being not so much.
Dennis.